whenever you have some kind of existential realization, your whole world can change. There's so much hidden in plain sight that we don't see. And I think using the metaphor of aliens hidden among us is kind of like bringing it out a little bit more. So it's more physical, right? Like it's not necessarily physical for a lot of people when they have these realizations. But I've always been fascinated by the mystery of life and how one different way of thinking can just change everything that you see before you. One person could look at something and see opportunity, and another person could look at something and see nothing but threats. But it's the same landscape. It just depends on your perspective. So one of the fun things about playing with this trope is you get to see the characters shift their perspectives.
This is the future.
Hello and welcome to the Alternate Futures podcast, where we chat with indie sci-fi creators about their work, the world, and anything in between, or beyond. Today I'm here with M.G. Herron. Matt is the author of more than 10 sci-fi adventure novels, including the Relics of the Ancient space opera adventure novels and the noir sci-fi mystery series The Gunn Files. He gets up every morning excited to tell stories full of space travel, lovable bots, alien civilizations, and ancient mysteries. Matt writes from Austin, Texas, where he lives with his patient family and loyal canine sidekick. His books are published independently and with small presses and have sold over 50,000 copies worldwide. They've even breathed the rarefied air atop several Amazon bestseller charts. Hi, Matt. Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So you were a guest about a year ago, where we talked in depth about many of your books. Today, I'm happy to have you back so we can discuss the relaunch of your Gun Files series via Kickstarter. And we'll discuss that series and take a bit of a deeper dive into Kickstarter for authors. But just to begin with, I mean, last time we spoke, we talked a bit about the weirdness of Austin and how that inspired various aspects of the Gun Files. Surely, as the times have not gotten any less weird, um, can you give me any new insights as Austin managed to get even weirder than it was?
I think it's still at the heart of the city, but it's also grown quite a bit in the 10 years I've been here. Some of the scenes in the Gun Files, um, uh, just like those locations have totally changed with, larger skyscrapers and hotel chains growing up around them. It's definitely matured as a city. My wife and I bought a house here in 2016, and it feels like the city has come to us in a certain way, as it's grown. So yeah, I love Austin. It's super fun. There's always something going on, but yeah, I think that that'll always be at the heart of it. But something that people who have been here a long time will tell you is that like, they can't recapture that the weirdness of the 90s or, whatever it was. It's kind of the sense of nostalgia about it.
Yeah, I do appreciate the sort of city coming to you. We have a place, well, which was originally on the outskirts, kind of near a green belt, and now the green belt is being completely built over in the last 5 years. So we're almost in the
Yeah,
center of the town now, which is a bit
right.
weird.
Right.
So
It
so you've
is.
have you noticed a lot of changes in the last couple of years in Austin? I mean, not in the 10 years, obviously that's quite a lot of time, but I'm just curious in the last year or two.
I don't think there's anything major in the last year or two that has caught my eye other than, the different restaurants and stuff that are opening around us. But yeah, I think, the city just continues to evolve. Change is the only constant.
Yeah. I mean, I recently had on Jessie Quack from Portland, and
Hmm.
she made a pretty compelling case for Portland taking the crown for weird. I'm just curious what your thoughts on that are. Is there any sort of civic rivalry between the two, or you just sort of live and
Oh
let
yeah,
live?
they call them sister cities, and they kind of both have that sort of weird vibe, and they try to own it in different ways. It is funny because certain like restaurant chains like Voodoo Donuts started in Portland, and when they were looking to expand, they were like, "Where should we go?" Oh yeah, Austin's a little bit like that too. I have family in Portland, so I've spent some time out there as well. Nice city.
Right. So I was wondering, do you ever go there and you're like, it's not that weird? Or do you think, oh wow,
Some people
they're
get a
beating
little
us?
bit, like defensive about their city. So,
Right.
there are certain, things that are definitely iconic or landmarks in Austin, like the I love you sign and, certain buildings, the skyline, but the skyline's completely changed over the last several years. And they're still building new stuff. It just looks like a completely different place.
Yeah, it's a strange thing to have a rivalry about who's the weirdest, but so speaking of weird a little bit, we might as well get straight into your series, the Gun Files, which is a story sort of on the ilk of Men in Black, for example, hidden societies, aliens living among us.
Hmm.
Um, I'm wondering in the, let's say the so-called real world, do you feel this sometimes? I mean, we did speak a little bit before about things that inspired kind of stuff like this in Austin. Um,
Hmm.
has it got a little bit more like that? I mean, to me, it feels like there's some weirdness behind the scenes, and I just wonder if you've been noticing something like
Hmm. Yeah. Sometimes I walk around and I see conspiracies everywhere. Um, no, I mean, I think that the metaphor really works for me in a lot of ways because whenever you have some kind of like existential like realization, your whole world can change. Like there's so much hidden in plain sight that we don't see. And I think using the metaphor of aliens hidden among us is kind of like uh, you know, bringing it out a little bit more so it's more physical, right? Like it's not necessarily physical for a lot of people when they have these realizations, but I've always been fascinated by like the mystery of life and how one different way of thinking can just change everything that you see before you. You know, one person could look at something and see opportunity, and another person could look at something and see nothing but threats. But it's the same landscape. You know, it just depends on your perspective. So one of the fun things about playing with this trope is you get to see the characters shift their perspectives. That happens to Gunn pretty early in the first book, but there are other ways that his perspective shifts throughout the story, right? Not only like discovering that aliens exist, but then there's this organization called the Federation that is behind them. That's like the governmental body of the aliens. And then that there's another faction called the Tetrad that is working against them. And it's these continued like layers that uncover the story for him that keep things interesting and also compel him forward. So in that sense, in the story, it's really coming together in the plot. But even in our lives, I also think that people start to make different realizations and make them see the world differently.
that. I guess it's also true that both of those positions can be valid at the same time. Like,
Hmm.
there's potential and opportunity and also threat at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of sort of alien manipulation, I mean, both of our countries right now, so the UK and the US, are having an election this year, and
Mm.
now maybe it's just my perspective, but in both cases, as I'm watching them, I feel like there's a certain amount of scripting going on within them. It almost like I mean, it's probably more obvious in the US. It's a bit more subtle in the UK, as most things are, but it almost feels like there's well, in the case of the US, like it's a reality show. I mean, we joked about this in sci-fi decades ago. So I published a Far Space 2 anthology from short stories from authors around the world, and one of them was precisely that, like an election that was framed as a reality show. And
Hmm.
this your election this year really is started to feel that way from the last couple of years, to be honest, to me. And ours over here feels very scripted. From that perspective, does it almost, again, this conspiracy stuff, right? Tinfoil hat, put your tinfoil hat on, but it almost feels like there's someone pulling strings and giving these leaders, especially over here, where, well, no, in both countries, we've had more or less puppet leaders, right? It's clearly there's an administration behind them running the things. In our case, our leader wasn't elected by anyone, not even his own party, right? That's how strange things were. Um,
That is bizarre. Yeah,
yeah,
you know, in the US, it's very media driven, and I personally don't pay that close attention to it much anymore, but it's been like this for decades, right? The elections are run on news channels and in tours throughout the country. And I don't know, they seem more about who can put on the biggest show than who can solve the biggest problems.
yeah.
And so it always seems to me like they're running on how well they can get elected and not necessarily how well they can perform after they get elected. So I've personally don't follow it too closely right now, and obviously it makes a difference who's elected, right? Determines the policies of the country and everything like that. But you know, I've got a lot going on in my life, and I found that too much attachment to this like media hype cycle, especially around elections, can be very like reality warping. It has a reality warping
Mm.
field to it. So speaking of like things hidden in plain sight, like you can see that stuff and be really affected by it and attached to it, or you can see the election and be a little bit more distant from it, right? And no matter who's in office, it's not going to change your life, especially at that level on an individual basis, right? Like I think it affects the policies and it will eventually come around to you. But I think some people take this stuff really personally. And with the media hype cycle and like in terms of it being scripted, I'm sure a lot of it is. I even think the debates are almost scripted now.
Yeah, I mean, there was, well, getting into it, there was something a few years ago that suggested something like that as well. It's a kind of funny because yours, in terms of sort of American perception of America in the world, that goes along with that. It's big, it's grand, it's flashy, and it's more like a reality show. Over here, I almost view ours as a, let's say, a soccer match to go with England, right?
Yeah.
It's like there's the red
Right.
and the blue, and no one else gives anyone else a chance, and you just have to cheer for one of those two teams, right?
Hmm.
But
Well, it's the false choice too between like
yeah, exactly.
good and evil, left and right, red and
Yeah.
blue. It just doesn't feel like there's a lot of options. And certainly, there are other democracies that have more of, like I know India's democracy has more parties.
Mm.
There's like I don't know exactly how many parties, and I don't want to misstate it, but it's certainly more than two. It's a lot of different choices. So I think, you know, is the forced choice between two really a choice?
Yeah, no, exactly. Anyway, so from potentially real conspiracies to fictional ones. The Gun Files is what we're sort of here to talk about today. And you are re-releasing this trilogy.
So it was originally published by Athon Books, and Audible Studios produced the audio. Oliver Wyman narrated it. He's a wonderful narrator, and the audiobooks are still on Audible today. But last year I got the rights back to the ebooks and the print books, and so I've
Oh,
just
okay.
reproduced them. Hired an artist. We did some beautiful new covers. I made first edition hardbacks. They're jacketed case laminate hardbacks. We never had hardback editions for them before, and I'm republishing them under my own imprint, the ebooks and the print books. So that's what I'm doing with the Kickstarter campaign. Is we're launching it there, and then I'll release it on my store and then on retailers after August.
Right. So why don't we'll go over the Gun Files, and then we'll get into sort of a deeper dive into Kickstarter, and you can sort of share some of your insights there. But perhaps you could just sort of give us a summary of the Gun Files. We did talk a little bit about it on the last time we met, but just give us sort of the sales pitch to the readers on why they should be interested in getting this on your Kickstarter.
Yeah, so the tagline is Aliens Are Among Us, Austin, Texas. Just got a whole lot weirder. And the idea is that there's this down on his luck bounty hunter who is looking for work. He's in debt. He's struggling to pay his bills, and he gets a case for um, to find somebody who jumped bail who happened to be also wanted for murder. And so he starts to pursue him, and it turns out to be an alien. And then he discovers the peacekeepers who are after him, and he gets wrapped up in this sort of chase for this alien convict. So that's the first book. From there, he kind of discovers the Federation and the Tetrad and gets kind of wrapped up in the alien plans. And so each book is a case where Gunn is pursuing somebody as a bounty hunter, or because somebody hired him for some kind of private investigator gig, and he is trying to track them down, and he just gets more and more wrapped up in the story. It's also about his group of friends. He's friends with an off-worlder, an alien. I call them off-worlders in the books, who owns a pizza shop downtown. They regularly go to the same bar. He has a romance with um, his one of his clients' accountants. So everything's kind of about this group of people and how they're discovering and dealing with the change happening in their city.
Right. And it does throughout the three books so far. And do you have plans for more books, by the way?
Yeah, I'm writing book four.
Oh,
Tentatively, working titles Nick of Time. And I planned it to be six books. And that's one of the reasons I took the series back, because I wanted more control over, how they were published and produced. And Audible still has the rights to the audiobooks for now, but I'll be able to sell them on my own website, and I'm gonna write the next 3 books, and at least wrap up that story arc, and then we'll see how it goes from there.
Right. And in sort of the tradition of series, it gets bigger with each book, doesn't it? The universe
Right.
expands.
Yeah, and the series arc is really about what's going on with the Federation and Earth's role in the intergalactic community, right? So it's really about Earth coming to terms with the existence of aliens and the fact that indeed they're already here. And now, it really, you talk about like perspective on life. It really shifts people's perspective to from going from we're the only ones to, oh, now we're part of a larger community. And what does that mean? How do we interact with our galactic neighbors? Now, I'm, making some assumptions here that we can bring other civilizations close in that way with the technology that they use for space travel, and that's what makes sci-fi fun. But I think that's true of anybody. Like it's how do you relate to the rest of the community? And of course, there's the conspiracies that are going on behind the scenes too.
Yeah, I mean that's always an interesting question, isn't it? Because I mean, I think many of us have probably looked at the idea of, oh well, we need like, wouldn't if some alien civilization made itself known, then all of a sudden humanity would surely unite as a common entity in not necessarily opposition, but in relation to the other species. Do you think that would happen, or do you think we would just remain as fractured as ever?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I think that conflict is part of human nature and also maybe part of animal nature. I would find it hard to believe that we would always be in peace, even if we did find, other people who are like us or other aliens who see the world the same way we do. More likely, it seems to me that we're going to find, if it is another species, that they're going to have a completely different worldview than us.
Yeah. And for me, as sort of a science background, that's really the most interesting thing in many ways is, we get locked into one perspective on everything, and to meet another species from another background, other evolutionary trees, etc., that would potentially have an entirely different way of viewing the universe would be fascinating, I think.
Yeah. And the aliens I use in the gun files, I like to use different species so they're all, kind of have a different worldview on it, but also they're all formed by the planets they come from, right? So there's many species and they're all living together, but they each kind of have their own identities formed by where they grew up. And so, you saw this too in oh, what was Andy Weir's latest novel? The name's escaping me. But he had a spider alien that just had a very different worldview from him, and it was about the two of them finding common ground. And I love that's like why first contact stories are interesting, right? It's how does a human species and an alien species find common ground when they are so different?
Right.
That's one of the things that's compelling, right? It's you see it when with people when we go from one culture to another or one country to another, and you see it certainly you'd see it with aliens. I mean, I think that's the draw of the first contact story, at least how it's presented in most of the genre.
Yeah. With writing off-world species, let's call them that. Do you feel that we get a lot of times locked into monolithic viewpoints of those species? I mean, in our current societies in the West right now, we're in danger. Well, not in danger of that. We are doing that too much. Where we block each race into like, oh, this race is like this race is like that. And do you
Mm,
think, as science fiction writers, maybe we fall into that kind of issue with off-world species
mm.
often as well?
Oh yeah, sure. I think we all have our biases.
Yeah. So I was wondering, so when you're writing these, because I have had a conspiracy theory story I was writing for a while. I got down the rabbit hole of fairways, and then part of my world building fell apart. But um, but when you're writing these things, like, do you find yourself looking over your shoulder and starting to sort of rethink your interpretation of your surroundings? Like, oh, there's aliens there. Oh, maybe that person's an alien. Oh, what about this kind of thing?
I mean, my imagination is always going on this sort of stuff, but I don't really have a very paranoid personality either. I think I kind of just put my head down and get on with it.
Yeah, because I mean, I started the deeper I started going, and the more I started building my world around these conspiracy ideas, uh, the more I started thinking, wow, maybe these are actually real, and I started thinking that's
Mm.
pretty frightening. But
The draw for me of writing these books is the mystery aspect too. Like I love solving puzzles and solving puzzles where other people are involved, or how I think about stories sometimes, right? Where Gunn's trying to solve something, right? He's trying to catch this alien or to find a missing person for his client or to, reconnect somebody who's been estranged. Or in fact rescue one of his friends who got kidnapped by the alien. So they are definitely, action driven mystery adventure sort of stories. And solving the puzzle is the thing that keeps me engaged with them.
do you think that really helps, let's say, the saleability and the draw of readers to, especially to sci-fi, right? Because sort of mystery and crime and things like that are such a large genre. And if you can
Hmm.
cross it over with sci-fi, do you think that brings a lot more readers to notice your books?
I think it brings a certain kind of reader for sure. Sci-fi mystery as a subgenre is super interesting to me. Like from Isaac Asimov's Robot series. I was also reading like Sam Spade and Raymond Chandler when I was young. I loved reading detective mysteries. One of my favorite series of all time is the Dresden Files. And some folks who have read the Gunn Files, obviously the names are parallel, but they said, "Oh, it's like Harry Dresden if there were aliens involved." And one of the things I love about Dresden is he's always trying to solve a case or help somebody. And, that's what's interesting too about a lot of the noir detectives, even the ones that are like super grumpy and smoking cigarettes all the time. They're still trying to help people.
Yeah, I find it interesting because to me, science fiction of all kinds has some kind of mystery there, in that at the very least, you're trying to, as the reader, to try to understand the world as it unfolds. For me, that's quite often the mystery.
Yeah.
But then having the more direct mystery, of course, is a more compelling narrative as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. It gives you like a structure to the series. It keeps things interesting because you can kind of have a new case. In the X Files, it was like Monster of the Week, right? So I kind of think about it like that. It's that kind of story. One of the other series that inspired me that I really love was a TV series called Fringe, and it was about I think she was an FBI agent, um, Olivia, and she was experimented on as a child and develops these powers throughout the series, but each episode is about her solving a case or showing up at a murder scene or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely compelling. Yeah. So if you did discover that, let's say your local pizza guy was actually an off-worlder, what would be your response?
I would freak out. Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't freak out? I think I'd have a little panic attack. But also so my wife and I adopted 3 kids this past year, and after fostering for a few years. And my oldest asked me the other day if aliens existed because he's real into sci-fi and stuff like that. And you know, it's hard to say yes for sure, right? We don't have definitive proof, but also like I don't have a reason to say no.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, you just got to look at the size of the universe, don't you?
Hmm.
And you're just like, come on, there's got to be something else out there. Can't be the only
Hmm.
ones.
Absolutely, absolutely. And life's interesting. Like I don't know. This is a cliche, but life finds a way. I really loved Adrian Tchaikovsky's novel Children of Time. Have you read that?
Hmm. I haven't read it, but I know of it. Yeah.
The concept is that the humans made the intelligent spiders and seeded a planet with them, and they evolved into their own thing because life found a way. I love the concept. It's very hard sci-fi, and while the stuff I write isn't hard sci-fi, it's more like soft sci-fi, more like Men in Black than you know um, precise orbital calculations.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not going to run precise orbital calculations. It's just not my style. So I definitely write more soft sci-fi, where it's more about the fun and the mystery and a little bit of the puzzle and the
Right.
characters.
Right. Just a little bit before we get into the Kickstarter. I mean, we have talked about your writing and your path to writing before. I wanted to get just touch on a little bit of your general marketing strategy,
Mm.
especially sort of digital media versus live events, for example. Do you do a lot of live events, or is most of your marketing online?
Mostly it's online. I've done a few live events, a few signings and readings, some, book shows like there's a Texas book fair that happens here every year in Austin. I had a table at that one year, but mostly online.
Mm.
Like there are definitely Comic Cons, and I know people who go to those and sell a lot of books. It's just not something I've pursued. I think now, now that I have like 10 plus novels, I think it would be a little bit more profitable to have a table at a Comic Con, but that's like it's a whole nother skill.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I put some of this on YouTube a little bit. I'm a bit slow with it, but I noticed that you do have a YouTube channel, though you haven't been active on it for a few years. Something I was wondering with sort of the social media advertising is so YouTube, there are a number of book channels on there. They don't seem to be very popular, and I think yours is something like 550 subs, which is not bad actually for a book channel. Um, but they don't get a lot of views, do they? Why do you think that might be?
I think YouTube is great for a certain kind of content. The reason I have that channel is I used to organize events for indie authors in Austin and post the videos there.
Right.
So I have that channel for some author events, and I've done some marketing on YouTube, but it's definitely not the channel for me. I'm pretty active on Facebook, and as far as my author social media, that's about it. And I have my email list, and it's really the email list that I use to promote my projects. And then I sell books directly. So YouTube just isn't a place I'm really focusing.
Yeah. No, because I was wondering if it's something that authors haven't really caught on to this style of YouTube, or whether it's just that the people
Well,
on YouTube just aren't interested.
I mean, Brandon Sanderson's YouTube channel is incredibly
Mhm.
popular. He does a great job publishing content that way. I think it just depends on the personality of the author and, how much time and resources they have to contribute to that certain thing. Um, I have a couple author friends who do like booktuber sort of content, right? Where they're
Right.
doing book reviews or book unboxings or book discussions, or they're covering genre tropes. Those seem to play well on YouTube, but I'm certainly not an
Mhm.
expert.
Yeah, because that's what I was wondering. Because I think the ones that are sort of most popular are the like marketing type stuff for authors, right? It seems like,
There's certainly a lot of that out
yeah. So
there.
if you make a channel around that, it seems like you'll get a lot of views. But if you make a channel, most people make a channel around, you know, look at this like a book talk or something. They don't seem to. You have to have a
Hmm.
certain kind of showmanship, I think, to get any kind of following on those. It
Yeah.
seems.
Well, and the reason it works for Brandon Sanderson is because he has a team, and he
Right.
interviews people, or he's like signing books while his team is asking him questions. He makes it very entertaining. But they have like a professional production team, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a bit of a
exactly.
different game, when you're at that level. I think indie authors especially just have to be conscious of their time and resources. Where am I going to get the biggest return, and what's the most important activity for me right now? And, books take a lot of time to write. And so I think a lot of authors focus on writing and publishing. And the ones that do or do find success with social media do it in a channel that they're super comfortable with, a place that they like to be, a place that they understand how the algorithm works and, know what's going to hit and what's not. So the authors I know that are good at YouTube, like they like YouTube. That's their thing.
Right. Yeah. So how do you use Facebook then? Do you have like your own group on there? Is that how you
I
use
have
it,
a
or
Facebook page.
just a
That's it.
page?
I just post
Right.
on a Facebook page, and I do run Facebook ads to like sell my books too. So that's where I do a lot of marketing. Is mostly through Kickstarter, the email list, and direct sales through my site.
Right. So it does sound like your sort of the email list is the big thing, which is more or less what
Hmm.
we're always told. That
Yeah, the
makes
email
sense
list
as
is a
well.
great place to keep in touch with me. I think that's the place where I can interact with the most readers. Also, like I can exchange messages with them. A lot of my readers also don't like Facebook. Like they just don't spend time on there. Like only a fraction of the people I can reach on my email list are on Facebook, and
Right.
only a fraction of those people even see the posts because of the way the
Yeah.
algorithms work. Right?
Exactly.
They restrict your reach. Right? I've got, I don't know, 1,100 followers, and I think I reach like 100 every time I post. It's you have to play their game, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Have you tried TikTok? That was a thing I think last year that was
Nope.
sort of pushed for authors.
Nope, not for me.
No, not at all. Yeah. No, I agree with that, but I was just wondering.
It's
So
just
one.
not a format I enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So one thing you have done obviously is Kickstarter.
Hmm.
And so you have just started just recently, at the time of recording of this, um, launched your Kickstarter campaign to relaunch your Gun Files series. I
Hmm.
guess I will say that it's going well already, it seems, and you
Yeah.
passed
So
your target.
we passed the target. It funded in about 4 hours, which is good. And Kickstarters are designed this way. It's a limited time marketing campaign, right? So it's a one-time thing. And the purpose is to launch the book and to reach new readers and to pre-sell copies. And also like to make back your costs up front. One of the challenges of publishing in general is that you have to, spend all the time and the do all the production for the product before you can sell it. So one of the nice things about Kickstarter is you're kind of pre-selling the book. So the way it's designed is in a set of tiers, and you can select which package you want. So the way I'm selling this trilogy, since it's basically a repackaging, a republishing of the series, is you can get the 3 books in ebook, paperback, or hardback, or you can get just book one. And then I made some acrylic pins and t-shirts and art prints, and I bundled those with the paperbacks and the hardbacks. And then there's some special stuff at the top tiers. But the funding goal was about $1,500, and we hit that in about 4 hours. And then it'll run for the next 3 weeks, so it ends on July 8th.
Right. So I was just wanted to confirm then you do look at it as a kind of a pre-order system in a way then.
Yep, that's absolutely what it is. Because people are selecting to pledge, and the way Kickstarter works too is it's all or nothing, right? If you don't hit your
Yeah.
goal, you don't get any of the funds, and nobody gets charged, because they're speculative projects, in theory. Now, I've written these books; they're done. There's nothing speculative about them, and I'm going to publish them regardless. So it's a pretty certain deal in this case. But some Kickstarters are for speculative projects that need to raise $250,000, right? And in that case, it really is speculative. You might get it, you might not. But in this case, it's just a fun way to make back the cost of the book, cover production, reach new readers. It also gives me an opportunity to make some of that merch that I
Mm,
enjoy making, like
right.
the t-shirts and the acrylic pins and the art prints. That stuff's fun for me. The first campaign I ran was for a space opera series, and I made a starfighter ship 3D model, that like a model that people could paint. And so that was a draw for that campaign. It was the same ship used in the book, and it was on the cover, and then you could get an actual miniature.
Oh, cool.
So it's a fun way to do this stuff, right? If I were to just have published those books on retailers, I had nowhere to sell the miniature. I had nowhere
Right.
to sell the t-shirts or acrylic pins. And book boxes are really fun, right? I love getting a book box that has like a book and some bookmarks in it, and the pins, the art prints, all like packaged together. That's a fun experience for a reader. It's also a premium experience. So not only is Kickstarter a fundraising tool, but it just allows me to provide a different experience to readers that's a little bit more premium than you just buy the ebook on retailers.
Right. Yeah. Um,
So
yeah, so I was just wondering then for most novelists, I'm assuming maybe incorrectly that the book is already written for most of them, and they are sort of trying to
mm,
recoup costs or
yeah,
acquire costs early before they do the final publication kind of thing. Is that the
yeah.
case you would say for, yeah.
I think it depends. My first campaign, I had the first 2 books written. I did not have the third book written when I published it. So it really was launching the series. And for that one, um, because I owned the rights to all of them, I was able to, do the audio, to offer the audio as well.
Okay.
And so it really was like, if I didn't get that campaign funded, I wouldn't have had the funds to produce the audio up front. I would have had to wait until I had earned some revenue to be able to pay for the audio production. So that was a great deal for the first one. This is a bit of a different situation with the Gun Files because I'm relaunching them and repackaging them under my own imprint.
Right.
But again, for me, this campaign is about giving readers and fans the hardback collector's edition for their shelves. It's about being able to produce the merchandise, and to offer book bundles and that premium reading experience. And then, it also gives me a foundation on which to relaunch the series, because after the Kickstarter's over, I'll fulfill the Kickstarter, make sure all the backers get the book first. They get the book first and early. I'll make sure my plan is to get all the books out by about August. And then I'll start to release the books on my own website to sell direct. So I could offer book bundles there. And then also publish the books on retailers again so that they're available. Because since I got the rights back last year, they've been off the market.
All right. So is that why I was just wondering why you felt you needed a relaunch? Is that just because you've taken the rights back and you want to sort of make sort of the world aware of these again?
Yep, that's it. That's it. It's like a second edition. And I had to also pay for new covers. And like I said, it's a good fundraising vehicle to make sure I make those production costs back quickly.
Right.
So from a business perspective, it's nice to get that chunk of money up front to cover the cost that I incurred producing the books. Each cover, I hired an illustrator to do custom. I hired a designer to make a Gunn Files logo because I knew I wanted 3 more books in the series. And then we produced the custom iconography that is both in the books as the chapter headings and on the t-shirts and on the acrylic pins. So it's a whole system. And for each subsequent book, what's going to be really fun for me, because I love designing and producing these. In my day job, I'm a content strategist and I work on website design and app designs, a lot of digital experience design stuff. So the design is really fun for me. So I designed the iconography system such that I can add a new icon for every book. And so by the end of the 6 books, we'll have the whole 6, a set of 6 icons. We can use it on the merch. It's all branded together. The Gunn Files logo looks fantastic. I just think it's a much more quality product now as a result. So, but there's some upfront cost associated with that. And so if we wrap Kickstarter in as a vehicle to deliver these premium book boxes, but readers get value out of that, and then I get the cost back. So it's good from a business perspective. And plus, the page stays up, and then it promotes the book in the future.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So this isn't the first Kickstarter you've done, is it? So, I was wondering if you could just sort of take us on a walk through the stages in creating a successful Kickstarter campaign. Let's say from inception. So the inception of the idea, oh, I want to do a Kickstarter to launch this series, until the actual launch of the Kickstarter campaign. Like, what would be the process for that, and how long would that take you?
Well, let's see. I think it depends how much time you have, right? Like if I was working on it full time, I could probably do it in a few weeks. I don't think it needs to be super big or complicated. And I've run campaigns that are at different levels of complexity. So for Kickstarter, the benefit of the platform is that you get something early, you get it first, and you get something new, right? So I never recommend anybody run a Kickstarter for something that is like audio only, or that is like I'm relaunching these, so they're kind of like new but also not new, but you have to have an angle for like what's the point of doing the Kickstarter now, why now. So I really recommend it for like new novels. So I'm relaunching these ones, and then I'm going to do a Kickstarter campaign probably for book 4 and then for book 5. So that would be a good reason to do it. Kickstarter also tends to like physical goods. So people who do special edition hardbacks seem to do really well on Kickstarter, whereas audio is less of a driver there. You're probably less likely to make money on an audio book. Now, there are exceptions to this rule, and usually the exceptions are somebody who already has an audience and knows how to drive funding. Or knows how to market it, or has a large audience to market to, right? Because the two go hand in hand. So anyway, from inception, so I'm like, okay, I've got the rights back to these books. I want to relaunch them. I just start the book production process. The first thing is to get the books in shape. So I hired an artist. I designed the covers. I proofread the books to make sure that they were, top quality, and then I reproduced the interiors. And then from there, we want to think about what else you want to offer. And so for Kickstarter, because it's in this tiered system, you want to offer something for people at every budget level. So I have a $1, I call it the Get Weird tier. It's a build your own. So you can back the campaign for $1 just to follow along, or you could just get the pins, or you could back that and just get book 1 and a t-shirt. So that's for people who want to like build their own package. And then it kind of steps up from there. You can just buy the book one ebook. You could buy all three ebooks. You could buy the paperback. You could buy the hardback of just book one. You could buy a paperback trilogy, and it steps up. So the idea is to have something for every budget, and to offer value to pull people into the higher tiers. So once you've produced the products, the next thing you want to do is kind of design the tier system. And you can look at other Kickstarter campaigns on the platform. There's a great discovery feature there that you can find other campaigns like your book and kind of think about what's going to draw people up into the higher packages, right? How are we going to get people um, to spend more money on some, interesting bundles, because it's a really valuable experience. And you always want to make sure that what you're offering them is worth the cost. And then there's the story. Then you have to like write the page and design the page itself. And from that point, you're into like marketing land. And at some point, you're going to also want to look at your costs, right? How much is it going to cost to print each book? How much is it going to cost to package each book? How much is it going to cost to ship? And how are you going to ship? So there's some logistics to consider. There's some great courses out there and books on how to run and launch Kickstarter campaigns. I haven't written any of them, but there's a great a couple books out there that really go into detail of the process, and that's kind of how I learned, was studying other Kickstarter campaigns, backing a bunch. I think I've backed like 30 campaigns at this point. I'm really excited because I just backed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles relaunch of some of the comics, and that just looked wicked fun. I think G.I. Joe is running a relaunch of like get the whole G.I. Joe comic set from beginning to end. So those can be really fun. And those are repackaging campaigns of popular IP, right? And if you study those, you can really get a good sense of how to do a relaunch well. So yeah, I'm kind of rambling now, but that's kind of how I would think about it: is you get the product sorted, you get the tiers sorted, and then you design the marketing and make sure that in there you are figuring out the logistics, because you do have to fulfill this product yourself.
Right. Because I mean, it does sound easy often when people talk about it, but for, let's say, those of us with less um marketing savvy, it can be a bit challenging to get it right.
Fortunately, I think you can find a campaign that looks good and kind of model yours off of some of those other campaigns.
Right.
That, in the business world, I work in UX design, content strategy. I do consulting for, a lot of big brands. And in the consulting world, there's this idea of best practices. What this means is what other people are doing that's working. Right. So look at what other people are doing that's working and think about, why is this working? And then there are, Dean Wesley Smith, for example, offers a free Kickstarter course. So you could take the free course, follow his structure, find a campaign that looks like what you want to be doing, and then make it your own, right? Don't copy it, but make it your own. Because there's a certain structure to Kickstarter that everybody is using. The tiers are part of the platform, the way that it's tiered out in different funding levels. And it's designed such that somebody who's interested in the campaign is going to be pulled into it, and it's designed in a time block manner so that you could promote it from X date to Y date. So it's just very structured, and it's designed to drive a launch like this. So it's really just purpose built for launching something.
So I was wondering, you mentioned a bit on the price, and so some of that's obvious. Of course, you have to know how much you're going to spend on the various parts. But in your Kickstarter, so your target was $1,500.
Yep.
And you mentioned at the beginning of the bit that the total estimated cost will be somewhere around 3,500. So I was wondering, how do you decide on what target to set?
Yeah, so part of the thing with Kickstarter is that it's all or nothing, right? So
Right.
if your real goal is $15,000, and you set it at $15,000, if you don't make it, you get zero. So what people do on Kickstarter is they set their goal a little bit lower so that they could hit it to cover their base costs. And so that's like your break-even point. Now, you don't want to set it too low,
Right.
artificially, but at the same time, it's an all or nothing campaign. So just to de-risk it, you want to set it a little bit low, and then you'll see that, like, I don't have a percentage for this, but the vast majority of successful campaigns have a fairly low goal compared to their final funding. And this is because what happens when you fund is that backers who see it go, oh, it's definitely going to happen because it's funded. Now I feel more confident in this product. And so I'm willing to back it, or I'm willing to raise my pledge and
Right.
give more money to it. And then, creators set stretch goals to enhance the product. So one of the stretch goals I'm excited about is to send me on a selfie tour of Austin through locations from the book. So I'm going to drive around to like the Frost Tower where they fight the bad guy in the first book, and to the East 6th Street, and to the Museum of the Weird where they find the underground chamber of aliens that belong to the gatekeeper. I'm going to go around to these locations if we hit a certain amount. People who do special edition hardbacks might enhance the book. So they're like, okay, if we hit $10,000, we're going to add foiling to the cover. If we hit $20,000, we're going to add, a pencil drawing of this character or a custom illustration. And those things can cost extra money, right? Which, for a big campaign like the one Sanderson runs, they spend thousands of dollars up front producing the artwork and everything they need so that they can market the campaign and show people. But yeah, it's an interesting platform. But the idea is that you set your goal lower, and then once you hit it too, the other thing that'll happen is Kickstarter will start to promote your campaign. So just like people set their prices arbitrarily low on Amazon too, right? How many free or 99-cent novels have you seen, right? They're oftentimes those are a loss leader into the rest of the series, and then the prices go up as you go through. So as far as pricing strategy, there's a certain pricing strategy that works when you're in Kindle Unlimited on Amazon or on KDP. There's a different pricing strategy that works when you're wide or selling direct, and there's a different pricing strategy that works on Kickstarter. And so what you have to do is you have to figure out what the rules of their game are, and then you have to play their game.
Right. I'm sort of understanding the psychology of the people who use
Mhm.
the platform in a way, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you have to play the platform's game and then recognize that the platform's designed that way because of the psychology of the buyer, right?
Right.
I'm going to feel more confident in a project when I see it's funded. And I'm going to feel more excited about a project when I see, oh man, we've hit all these stretch goals. This is going to be an awesome experience. And I really tried to make that happen here. I didn't want to do special edition hardback, so I didn't add like foiling or sprayed edges or a ton of artwork to the interiors. I think that could be a future project, right? And I would probably do it one book at a time so that I could invest the money up front to produce a really beautiful hardback that can be enhanced in that way. I think those are different kinds of campaigns than what I'm running.
Right.
What I'm running is let's put some basic hardbacks out, and they're beautiful hardbacks, right? They're jacketed, they're case laminate, the art's printed on the cover and on the inside, but they're print on demand quality, not that custom high end faux leather, stuff that Sanderson and Will White are doing with Cradle, or Sanderson's doing with his stuff and Will is doing with Cradle. So yeah, there's certain kinds of campaigns, and this one is, a pretty straightforward relaunch hardbacks, first edition, and some merch. And then in the future, who knows what I could come back and do. There's just so much opportunity with Kickstarter. The other thing people do that's really interesting is they do crossover into other media. So like Will White, for example, has the Cradle series. He just did this incredible campaign. I was super impressed, where they funded an anime for his series.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're not sure if it's going to be a movie, if it's going to be an episode, if it's going to be a pilot or a series of shorts. Like, we don't know, but we want to bring this to life as an anime. And his readers are super passionate about that series. It's a wonderful series. I think I'm on like book 6. It's really good, and it just really is well suited to an anime. And they found a guy. I think they said that he had done some Batman DC work in animation, and so they just had some great stuff. And what they produced to market that campaign was some examples, like some concept sketches and some short video. They didn't produce the whole movie up front because they didn't have the funding. So that's a great way for a book property to cross into animated media, and potentially could be a great TV show someday.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. We're almost out of time. I'm aware of that, but I wanted two quick questions before I let you go. The one of them is just with regards to Kickstarter. Where do you find your supporters? Like, so do you make sure you have a certain size email list before you start, or do you rely on people on Kickstarter?
Yeah. So what you can do is you can publish the campaign, but only a preview page, and then you can market it to people and they can follow the campaign. And then once they've followed the campaign, as soon as you click go live, they get an email that says, hey, it's live. So the pre-launch sort of marketing, the idea is to just make people aware of it and get enough followers on the campaign so that when you do go live, everybody is notified.
Okay.
So it just allows you to kind of gather that up front. But yeah, you should definitely tell your audience as soon as you like, as early as you can, because the more followers you have on it in the pre-launch period, the more successful you'll launch it in the launch period. But this campaign had about 60 followers. It didn't have a ton. It's already funded, so you don't need a ton if you design the campaign correctly. So
Right.
that's the other benefit of Kickstarter is you can raise a decent amount from a fairly small audience. And so for indie authors like us, it's a really great platform for that.
That's excellent. And I want to sneak in one big question, as we usually have at the end of the show, and that is, so you have a character called the Gatekeeper in the Gunn Files, and this makes me think of an issue faced by many indie creatives, especially. Now we have all kinds of technologies. You can see where I'm going already. We have all kinds of technologies that allow us to express our creativity, almost anyone to express their creative vision. And yet we still have all of these gatekeepers within the industry, whether it's corporate gatekeepers or whether it's media gatekeepers or whether it's even just individual people who are sort of elitist. And do you think we'll ever get past this? And if we were to, what kind of sort of change of attitude needs to happen within society?
I don't know if as society we'll ever get past it, because for me it's all tied up with like power dynamics, right? It's a struggle for power, and what gatekeepers are is they have secured some power at the intersection between here and there, and they are preventing or allowing people to move through it. Now, what's amazing about Kindle and ebook publishing where it is today is there are so many different paths. And so if you are allowing yourself to be obstructed by a gatekeeper in publishing, in my opinion, it's because you've chosen that path and you are allowing yourself to be obstructed, right? Like people who are bullish on traditional publishing and they may have really good business or marketing decisions. If they allow themselves to be obstructed by a gatekeeper for a decade and put their career off for a decade, that's a choice that they've made. Whereas in the 80s and 90s, like you literally didn't have another choice. There wasn't another viable option to self-publishing. Now there are many viable options. I think for me as an independent creative, I do several different things. I teach content strategy. I do UX design consulting. I write and publish fiction. For me, having like an independent career is important. I like the freedom and the control it brings me in my life. And these small projects like relaunching the Gunn Files on Kickstarter and selling it direct as a bundle or on Shopify as individual ebooks. That's my path, and I really enjoy this process and this way of doing things. That doesn't mean it's right for everybody, but gatekeepers are, thankfully, we've found some ways around them.
Right.
But will we ever as a society get over them? I doubt it. Maybe I'm a cynic. But I doubt
it's
it.
more attitude of the creative these days, isn't it? You just have to realize that they're not actually a roadblock.
Right. And maybe there's just another path. And like Kickstarter and KDP and Shopify, these give me other paths. I know authors who sell most books and make the most money at Comic Cons, and that's their path. And that's wonderful. There's so many options out there in the world today. And it's funny you mentioned the gatekeeper in the book. So his role is as kind of the customs enforcer between Earth and off-world activities. So what he's doing in the book is he's just keeping the alien commerce under wraps for the Federation, but he's kind of like a mob boss. And so he's given Gunn all sorts of trouble, and he puts Gunn into extra debt, and he has to, face him. And so Gunn struggles with that gatekeeper too. It's a fun part of the book.
Yeah. That is sort of an exploration of your own experience, maybe, or overcoming it, or the experience.
I mean, maybe it's just, maybe it's my creative values coming out, right? Like I really deeply value independence. And one of the things that Gunn is struggling with in the book is his own independence, right? This freedom from the burden of debt, the stability that comes from having money, the freedom of choice that he gets from, running his own business, and the lack of choices that he's sometimes faced with when he's dealing with the Federation and the Tetrad. They force him into positions where he has to do things that aren't his choice, that he didn't choose. And so he really struggles with that.
Right. So I'm aware that you have another call at the moment. So we'll let you go now. But if you can just let us know where to find you online and if you'll be at any upcoming events.
Yeah, the best place to go is mgherron.com. Herron has 2 R's, mgherron.com. And there you'll be able to find the Kickstarter if you find it while it's still running, or just find all my other books online there as well. And you can buy them straight from me or on Amazon or other retailers.
That's excellent. So MG Herron, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. It's been fun.
And thank you for listening. Information and links related to this and all episodes are available at alternatefutures.co.uk. I'm also over at Substack under Alternate Futures, where I post articles on science fiction, socio-technological issues, and futurism. You can subscribe for free or sign up for a paid account if you'd like to support the podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, why not share it with friends, writers, and other sci-fi fans you know? And if there are any indie sci-fi creators you'd like to see featured, send me a message at podcast@alternatefutures.co.uk. Once again, I'd like to thank you for listening, and I hope you'll join me on the next episode.
This is the future. Human error. Evolution. This is the future.